The cardboard box hit the water with a sickening splash. Inside, 2 puppies screamed. Tiny, desperate cries that echoed across the river. On the bridge above, a woman in silk laughed while her driver dragged a bleeding maid by the hair. "Throw her in too," the woman ordered. "No one will miss another illegal." But they didn't see the man in navy camouflage watching from the shadows. They didn't see his German shepherd already sprinting toward the water. And they certainly didn't know that Harlan Voss had just returned from hunting terrorists overseas and recognized evil when he saw it. Before we continue, tell us where you're watching from in the comments below. Subscribe and stay until the end. This story will change how you see justice forever. The screaming started before Harlan Voss even saw the bridge. He was driving home on Route 7, windows down, letting the cold night air keep him awake after hours of travel. His German shepherd, Rex, sat alert in the passenger seat, ears rotating like satellite dishes, tracking a signal only he could hear. Harlan had been gone months in places he couldn't name, doing things he couldn't discuss, watching men die in ways he couldn't forget. Now he was minutes from his front door, minutes from holding his pregnant wife Kendra, minutes from becoming a husband again instead of a weapon. Then Rex growled. It wasn't his normal warning sound. This was deeper, more primal, the sound he made when he detected genuine threat. Harlan slowed the truck. "What is it, boy?" Rex's entire body had gone rigid, nose pointed toward the old iron bridge that crossed the Blackwater River. Harlan squinted through the darkness and saw headlights. 2 vehicles parked at odd angles, movement near the railing, and then he heard it. A woman screaming. Not a scream of surprise or even fear. This was agony. This was someone being hurt. Harlan pulled his truck off the road and killed the engine. His training kicked in instantly. Assess, adapt, act. He reached under his seat and retrieved his service pistol, checking the magazine by feel alone. "Stay," he commanded Rex. The dog whimpered in protest, but obeyed. Harlan moved through the tree line parallel to the bridge, his NWU camouflage blending with the shadows. Years of military service had taught him patience. Rushing into unknown situations got people killed. What he saw when he reached the bridge made his blood turn to ice. A black Mercedes was parked sideways across both lanes. Beside it stood a woman in her 50s, silver hair perfectly styled, wearing a cream-colored silk blouse that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Her face was angular, aristocratic, twisted into an expression of absolute contempt. On the ground before her knelt a young woman, barely 20, Filipino or Indonesian, dressed in a simple grey uniform, now torn and bloodied. Her lip was split, her eye was swelling shut. She cowered with her arms raised, trying to protect her head from the man standing over her. The man was huge. Chauffeur's uniform, shoulders like a refrigerator, fists the size of Christmas hams. He drew back his arm and struck the young woman across the face with an open palm that sounded like a gunshot. She crumpled sideways, sobbing. "Please, ma'am," the young woman gasped. "Please, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." "You didn't mean to." The older woman's voice dripped with venom. "You didn't mean to let my dogs escape. Those puppies cost each Sofia, and because of your stupidity, they ran into the street and nearly caused an accident. I only opened the door for 1 second, ma'am. I swear." "Barrett!" The chauffeur grabbed Sofia by her hair and yanked her to her feet. She screamed, hands clawing uselessly at his grip. Harlan's finger found the trigger guard. Every instinct screamed at him to intervene, but he'd counted 2 people so far. There could be more in the vehicles. He needed to see the full picture. "Ma'am, please." Sofia was hysterical now. "I have children. My daughter is only young. Please, I'll do anything. You'll do exactly what I tell you to do," the older woman said coldly. "Just as you always have, just as your kind always does." She walked to the Mercedes and opened the rear door. From inside, she retrieved the cardboard box. It wasn't large, maybe square, but it was moving. And from within came the unmistakable sound of puppies crying. Harlan felt his stomach drop. "No," Sofia whispered. "No, Mum. Please. They're just babies. They're damaged goods now." The woman carried the box to the bridge railing with the casual indifference of someone disposing of garbage. "The vet said one has a broken leg from being hit by that car. The other won't eat. Neither one will ever show properly. They're worthless." "I'll take them." Sofia struggled against Barrett's grip. "I'll take them home. You don't have to take them where?" "To that cramped apartment you share with other illegals." The woman laughed. "Don't be ridiculous. This is cleaner." She lifted the box over the railing. "No!" Sofia screamed. The woman let go. The box tumbled through darkness and struck the water feet below. For one horrible moment, the puppy's cries intensified. Sharp, terrified yelps that echoed off the river's surface. Then the box began to sink, and the sounds became gurgles, then bubbles, then silence. Sofia collapsed, sobbing so hard she couldn't breathe. They were alive. They were alive. Oh, God. They were alive. Were. The woman corrected past tense. Barrett put her in the trunk. "I've decided she needs a lesson about consequences." Barrett bent down and grabbed Sofia under the arms. That was when Harlan moved. He burst from the tree line like a shadow given form, covering the feet to Barrett in seconds. The chauffeur heard him coming, turned, had just enough time to register surprise before Harlan's fist connected with his jaw. Barrett went down hard. Sofia scrambled away on hands and knees, too shocked to scream. The woman in silk spun around, eyes wide. "Who the hell? Don't move!" Harlan's voice was calm, controlled. The voice of a man who had given orders under enemy fire. His pistol stayed holstered, but his stance made clear he didn't need it. "Step away from the railing." "Do you have any idea who I am?" The woman's shock was already transforming into outrage. "I am Vivian Hale. My husband owns half this county. You just assaulted my employee. Your employee just drowned 2 puppies. They were my property, mine to dispose of as I see fit. And her?" Harlan gestured towards Sofia, who had pressed herself against the Mercedes, trembling. "She your property too." Vivian's eyes narrowed. "She's my maid, and whatever discipline I choose to administer is none of your concern, soldier." She said the word like it was an insult. Harlan felt something cold settle into his chest. He'd met people like Vivian Hale before. Not in America, in countries where power meant impunity, where wealth bought silence, where human beings were sorted into categories of valuable and disposable. He'd fought wars against that mentality. He wasn't going to tolerate it minutes from home. "Sofia." He kept his eyes on Vivian. "Can you stand?" The young woman nodded shakily. "Come here, slowly." Sofia pushed herself off the Mercedes and stumbled toward Harlan. Barrett groaned on the ground, stirring but not yet rising. "If you take her, I'll have you arrested." Vivian's voice had gone deadly quiet. "My husband plays golf with the sheriff. He'll destroy you." "Ma'am, with all due respect, I've been threatened by Taliban commanders, Russian operatives, and a North Korean colonel who kept human ears as trophies." Harlan met her gaze. "You don't scare me." For a moment, Vivian seemed genuinely uncertain. Then her expression hardened. "You're making a mistake." "Maybe." Harlan placed a hand on Sofia's shoulder and began guiding her toward the tree line. "But I've made worse ones." Behind them, Barrett finally staggered to his feet, clutching his jaw. "Ma'am, should I let them go?" Vivian's voice was ice. For now. Harlan didn't look back. He led Sofia through the darkness to his truck, where Rex waited with ears pinned forward in anxiety. "Get in," Harlan told her. "You're safe now." Sofia climbed into the back seat, pulling her knees to her chest. Rex immediately twisted around to sniff her, then began gently licking her wounded face. Harlan started the engine. "The puppies," Sofia whispered. "She threw them in the river. They might still be." Harlan was already moving. He slammed the truck into gear and roared down the embankment, following a maintenance road that ran parallel to the water. The river was moving fast, swollen from recent rains. But if the box hadn't sunk completely, if the current hadn't carried it too far, he spotted it. A dark shape bobbing against a fallen log, maybe yards downstream. Harlan threw the truck into park and was out the door before the engine fully stopped. Behind him, he heard Rex scrambling over the center console, ignoring the stay command entirely. The water hit him like a wall of frozen glass. March in Virginia. River temperature, maybe degrees. He had minutes before hypothermia started affecting his motor control. Harlan swam hard, fighting the current that wanted to drag him sideways. The box was waterlogged, riding low, almost completely submerged. He reached it in seconds and grabbed the cardboard edge. It tore in his hands. He plunged his arms inside, feeling through the water, and his fingers closed around something small and warm and desperately squirming. A puppy still alive. He tucked it against his chest and reached deeper. The second one wasn't moving. He grabbed it anyway and turned for shore, kicking hard, the current trying to pull him under. Rex met him at the water's edge, barking frantically. Harlan stumbled onto the muddy bank and fell to his knees, coughing up river water. The two small bodies clutched against his uniform. The first puppy was coughing too, a good sign. Airway working, heart beating. The second one lay limp in his palm. No. Harlan flipped it over and began CPR. 2 fingers on its tiny chest. Gentle compressions. Breath into its nose and mouth. Come on, come on. Sofia had left the truck and was kneeling beside him, crying, praying in a language he didn't understand. Rex circled them both, whimpering. Harlan kept working. Compressions, breaths, compressions, breaths. Nothing. Please, Sofia sobbed. Please, God, please. Compression, compression, compression. The puppy convulsed. Then it coughed. A weak gurgling sound and water spilled from its tiny mouth. Its legs began to kick. Harlan exhaled a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. Okay, he said. Okay, you're okay. He looked at Sofia. We need to get them warm, and we need to get you to a hospital. No hospital. Sofia shook her head violently. They'll call immigration. They'll send me back. My daughter. What about your daughter? She's with a neighbor. She doesn't know where I went. If I disappear, Sofia's voice cracked. Mrs. Hale took my passport when I started working for her. She said it was for safekeeping. She said Harlan felt the cold in his chest grow colder. How long have you worked for her? Years. And she's been hitting you this whole time. Sofia didn't answer. She didn't have to. The scars Harlan could see in her arms. The flinch response when he'd raised his hand to wipe water from his face. They told him everything. I'm taking you home, Harlan said. To my home. My wife is a nurse. She'll look at your injuries. Then we're going to figure out how to make sure Vivian Hale never hurts anyone again. You don't understand. Sofia's eyes went wide with fear. Her husband is powerful. He has police. He has judges. People who cross them disappear. I'm not people. Harlan stood still, holding both puppies against his chest. One of them, the one with a crooked white patch on its chest, was squirming more strongly now, trying to lick his chin. The other, darker-faced and calmer, simply pressed closer to his warmth. Rex truck. The German shepherd bounded ahead, and Harlan followed with Sofia at his side. In the distance, he could hear sirens. They reached the main road just as a sheriff's cruiser came around the bend, lights flashing. Harlan tensed, but kept driving. The cruiser didn't stop. They're going to the bridge, Sofia whispered. Mrs. Hale called them. Let her. But what if they come after us? Then they'll find out I'm not the kind of problem that goes away with a badge and a gun. Sofia was quiet for a long moment. Then why did you help me? You don't know me. You could have just driven past. It was a fair question. Harlan had asked himself the same thing 1,000 times in his career. Why put himself in danger for strangers? Why risk everything for people he'd never see again? When I was young, he said slowly, my mother was diagnosed with cancer. We didn't have insurance. We didn't have money. She was going to die because we couldn't afford treatment. Sofia listened without interrupting. A man from our church, guy named Preston Wade, wrote a check for a large sum. Just handed it to my father one Sunday after service. Didn't ask for anything in return. Didn't want recognition. Just said that he'd been blessed and believed in paying it forward. Harlan's hands tightened on the wheel. My mother lived another years. Long enough to see me graduate high school. Long enough to see me become a SEAL. Long enough to tell me she was proud of the man I'd become. He glanced at Sofia. Mr. Wade died before I could pay him back. So, I made a promise. Every time I see someone who needs help, I help, because that's what he did for me. That's what good people do. Sofia wiped her eyes. Your mother raised a good son. She did her best with difficult material. Despite everything, Sofia almost smiled. They pulled into Harlan's driveway minutes later. The house was dark except for a single light in the upstairs bedroom. Kendra's reading lamp. Harlan's heart clenched. He'd imagined this homecoming differently. Flowers, maybe a nice dinner, holding his wife close and feeling the baby kick for the first time. Instead, he was soaking wet, hypothermic, carrying 2 half-drowned puppies and an undocumented maid who just escaped from what sounded like modern slavery. Just another Tuesday in the life of Harlan Voss. Wait here, he told Sofia. Let me explain to my wife why I'm bringing home strays. He climbed out of the truck just as the front door opened. Kendra stood in the doorway wearing his old navy sweatshirt, her pregnant belly visible beneath the worn fabric. Her eyes, those beautiful green eyes that had haunted him through every deployment, went wide. Harlan. Hey, baby, you're wet. She descended the porch steps as fast as her condition allowed. What happened? Are you hurt? Why do you have she spotted the puppies? Oh my God, long story. Is that blood on your shirt? Not mine. Kendra looked past him to the truck where Sofia was still huddled in the back seat. Harlan, who is that? Also a long story. Kendra's hands went to her hips, a gesture Harlan knew well. It meant he had approximately seconds to start explaining before she completely lost patience. There was a woman on the bridge, he said quickly. Rich woman. She threw these puppies in the river to drown them. The girl in the truck is her maid. She was being beaten. I intervened. Kendra processed this. And the blood. The woman's chauffeur disagreed with my intervention. Is he breathing? Unfortunately, Kendra looked at the puppies again. One of them had started shivering violently, its tiny body unable to retain heat. The nurse in her took over immediately. Get them inside. Get her inside too. I need warm towels, blankets, and my medical kit from the bathroom closet. She was already moving back toward the house. And Harlan? Yeah. Next time you want to surprise me, maybe just bring flowers. An hour later, the crisis had stabilized. The puppies were in a cardboard box lined with heated towels, both sleeping soundly. The smaller one, the white blazed one that had nearly died, seemed to be recovering well, its breathing steady. Sofia sat at the kitchen table, a cup of tea cooling between her hands while Kendra cleaned the cut on her lip. This will need stitches eventually, Kendra said. But for now, butterfly bandages will hold it. Thank you. Sofia's voice was barely audible. You didn't have to. Yes, I did. Kendra applied the final bandage with gentle precision. Anyone married to that man? She gestured toward Harlan, who was changing out of his wet uniform in the laundry room. Learns pretty quickly that helping people isn't optional. It's just what we do. Sofia looked toward the laundry room. He saved my life tonight. He has a habit of doing that. Harlan emerged wearing dry clothes, a worn flannel shirt and jeans that Kendra had kept waiting for exactly this moment. He looked like a different person out of uniform. Softer, somehow. More human. Rex followed at his heels, unable to be more than feet from his master. Okay, Harlan sat across from Sofia. I need you to tell me everything from the beginning. How did you end up working for Vivian Hale? Sofia's hands tightened around the teacup. Years ago, I came here on a tourist visa. I was supposed to visit my cousin in California, then return to Manila. But when I arrived, there was a man at the airport. He said he worked for an agency. He said he could get me a job, good pay, room and board, a path to legal residency. Let me guess, Harlan said quietly. It was too good to be true. Sofia nodded. He took my passport, said he needed it for the paperwork. Then he put me in a van with other women. We drove for days. I didn't know where we were going. Kendra had stopped bandaging. Her face was pale. When we arrived at Mrs. Hale's estate, she looked at us like we were animals at an auction. She chose 3 of us. The others went somewhere else. I never saw them again. Harlan's jaw tightened. And what did she have you do? Everything. Cleaning, cooking, laundry, hours a day sometimes. If we made mistakes, Barrett would punish us. How? Sofia pulled up her sleeve. Beneath the fabric were scars, small, circular, evenly spaced. Cigarette burns. Kendra made a sound of horror. She paid us nothing. Sofia continued. She said the agency fees had to be worked off first. She said we owed her for our food, our room, our uniforms. Every month the debt grew instead of shrinking. We couldn't leave. We couldn't call for help. She controlled everything. Harlan leaned back in his chair. His expression hadn't changed, but Kendra, who knew him better than anyone, could see the fury building behind his eyes. How many others are still at that house? 2, Lila and Marissa. They've been there longer than me. They don't talk anymore. They just work. And the Hales know about this. Of course, Sofia's voice turned bitter. Mr. Hale comes to the servant quarters sometimes. He says it's to inspect our work, but she stopped. Couldn't continue. Kendra reached over and took her hand. Harlan stood abruptly and walked to the window, staring out at the darkness. Rex followed, sensing his distress. What are you thinking? Kendra asked. I'm thinking about something a wise man once told me. Harlan didn't turn around. He said, evil wins when good people do nothing. And what are you going to do? Harlan was quiet for a long moment. Then I'm going to do something. He made the first call at night. Commander Klein, sorry to wake you. Brody Klein's voice was groggy but instantly alert. Voss, I thought you were still deployed. Got back tonight. I need a favor. Name it. I need surveillance equipment, cameras, audio, encrypted transmission. Enough to cover a foot estate. Pause. What kind of trouble are you in? Not in. Going toward. Another pause. Then Klein laughed. Some things never change. When do you need it? Yesterday. I'll be there by hours. The second call was harder. Nadia Reed answered on the first ring, which told Harlan she hadn't been sleeping either. Voss. Jesus. It's been what? Years. I need your help. I'm listening. Harlan told her everything. The bridge, Vivian Hale, Sofia's testimony, the other women still trapped in that house. Nadia was silent for a long time after he finished. Do you know who you're talking about? She finally asked. Donovan Hale isn't just rich, he's connected. He funds the governor's campaigns. He sits on the board of hospitals. He practically owns the local police department. I know. Going after him will make enemies you can't even imagine. I know that too. So why call me? Harlan looked at Sofia, who had fallen asleep on the couch with one hand resting near the box of puppies. Kendra had covered her with a blanket and was now sitting beside her, one hand protectively on her pregnant belly. Because you're the only journalist I know who isn't afraid of powerful men, Harlan said. And because I'm about to give you the story of your career. Nadia was quiet again. Then I'll be there in the morning. And Voss. Yeah, whatever you're planning. Be careful. The Hales don't just destroy their enemies. They erase them. Harlan hung up and returned to the living room. Kendra looked up at him. You're really going to do this? Did you think I wouldn't? No. She smiled sadly. I knew who I married. Harlan knelt beside her and placed his hand on her belly. Through the fabric, he felt movement, their sun kicking against his palm. I won't let our child grow up in a world where people like Vivian Hale do whatever they want, he said. I won't let evil win because I was too afraid to fight. Kendra cupped his face in her hands. Then fight and come home to us when it's done. Harlan kissed her deeply, tenderly, the way he dreamed of kissing her for months. Always, he promised. But even as he said it, he couldn't shake the feeling that the war he'd started tonight would cost him more than he could imagine. At time, his phone buzzed. Unknown number, no caller ID. Harlan answered cautiously. Yes. The voice on the other end was smooth, cultured, and cold as winter steel. Mr. Voss, my name is Donovan Hale. I believe you've met my wife. Harlan's grip tightened on the phone. I understand there was a misunderstanding this evening. I'd like to resolve it before things become complicated. I think they're already complicated. Perhaps, but they don't have to stay that way. Hale's tone remained pleasant, conversational. You're a military man. You understand pragmatism, so let me be pragmatic. Return my property, all of it, and I'll forget this incident ever occurred. Your property, the girl, the dogs, they belong to my wife. Human beings aren't property, Mr. Hale. That's a charmingly naive perspective. For the first time, something hard crept into Hale's voice. I'm offering you an exit, Mr. Voss. Take it, because if you force my hand, I will destroy you. Your career, your reputation, your family, everything you care about will burn. Harlan looked at Kendra, asleep in the chair with her hand still on her belly. He thought about Sofia, scarred and terrified. He thought about two puppies who'd nearly died because a wealthy woman found them inconvenient. Mr. Hale, he said quietly, I faced enemies who made you look like a playground bully. I've been shot at, bombed, and left for dead in places so dark you can't imagine them. And I'm still here. He let the words hang. So, here's my counteroffer. Release the other women you're holding. Turn yourself in to federal authorities. Confess to human trafficking, labor exploitation, and whatever else your lawyers haven't managed to hide. Silence on the other end. Or don't, Harlan continued, and find out exactly what a Navy SEAL does when you threaten his family. He hung up. Kendra stirred. Who is that? Nobody important. Harlan set the phone down. Go back to sleep. But he didn't sleep himself. Instead, he sat in the darkness, watching over his family, knowing that the battle had only just begun. And somewhere across town, in a mansion built on cruelty and silence, Donovan Hale was making calls of his own. The phone call from Donovan Hale still echoed in Harlan's mind when the first light of dawn crept through the windows. He hadn't slept, couldn't sleep. His body was trained to function on adrenaline and purpose, and tonight he had both in abundance. Kendra found him at the kitchen table, cleaning his pistol with methodical precision. You've been up all night, she said softly. Couldn't turn my brain off. She lowered herself into the chair across from him, one hand supporting her belly. What did he say on the phone? Harlan sat down the cleaning rod. He offered me an exit. Return Sofia and the puppies. Forget everything. Walk away. And if you don't, he'll destroy us. Kendra was quiet for a moment. Then she reached across the table and placed her hand over his. I've been a military wife for years, Harlan. I've watched you deploy to places that gave me nightmares. I've answered the door at time in the morning convinced it would be officers telling me you weren't coming home. Her grip tightened. I'm not afraid of a man in a suit. Harlan turned his hand over and laced his fingers through hers. I love you, he said. Have I mentioned that lately? Not in months. I love you. I know. She smiled, but her eyes were serious. Now, tell me what we're going to do. Before Harlan could answer, Rex's ears snapped forward. The German shepherd had been dozing by the door, but now he was on his feet, a low growl building in his throat. Someone was coming up the driveway. Harlan was at the window in 2 seconds, pistol in hand. He relaxed when he recognized the vehicle. a black Suburban with government plates. "It's Klein," he said. "Right on time." Commander Brody Klein was out of the Suburban before it fully stopped, moving with the efficient energy of a man who'd spent decades in special operations. He was old but looked young, with salt and pepper hair cropped close and a handshake that could crush walnuts. "Voss!" Klein pulled him into a brief, hard embrace. "You look like hell." "Rough night, so I gathered." Klein popped the Suburban's rear hatch, revealing cases of equipment: cameras, audio bugs, signal boosters, encrypted tablets, enough to wire a small country. "That's what I'm counting on." They unloaded the equipment while Harlan filled Klein in on everything. The bridge, Vivian Hale, Sofia's testimony, the threatening phone call. Klein listened without interruption. When Harlan finished, the older man's expression had turned granite hard. "Human trafficking," Klein said. "On American soil by American citizens. That's what it sounds like. Then we burn them down." Klein's voice held no hesitation. "What's the plan?" "Nadia Reed is coming. She's got contacts at the FBI. If we can get solid evidence, recordings, documents, testimony, she can push it to federal prosecutors who aren't in Hale's pocket. And the local cops compromised. The sheriff plays golf with Hale. Half the department is probably on his payroll." Klein nodded grimly. "So, we go around them." Classic insurgent methodology: hit the target where they're weakest, not strongest. A second vehicle appeared on the road, a battered Honda Civic that had seen better decades. It pulled in behind the Suburban, and Nadia Reed emerged, looking like she'd driven through the night. She was old, with sharp features and sharper eyes, her dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. She wore no makeup and didn't need it. Nadia had spent years covering stories that powerful people wanted buried, and she had the scars, professional and personal, to prove it. "Harlan Voss," she shook his hand firmly. "Last time I saw you, you were pulling a Serbian war criminal out of a compound in Kosovo. Last time I saw you, you were publishing the story that put him in prison. Good times." Nadia's gaze swept the property, assessing. "So, you've decided to take on the Hale family. Either you're brave or stupid. Probably both. Fair enough." She pulled a laptop bag from her car. "Show me what you've got." They gathered in the living room where Sofia had just woken up. She looked terrified when she saw the strangers shrinking back against the couch. "It's okay," Harlan said gently. "These are friends. They're going to help us." Sofia's eyes flicked between Klein and Nadia. "Help? How?" "By putting Vivian and Donovan Hale in prison," Nadia said bluntly. "Where they belong." Sofia shook her head. "You don't understand. They have power. They have connections. People who try to expose them disappear." "What people?" Sofia hesitated, then slowly. "There was a woman before me. Her name was Isabella. She tried to run away. She made it to a church, told a priest what was happening. What happened to her? The priest called the police. The police called Mr. Hale." Sofia's voice dropped to a whisper. "Isabella was deported within hours. We never heard from her again." Nadia exchanged a look with Harlan. "That's exactly the kind of testimony we need." Nadia said, "Names, dates, specific incidents, everything you can remember. They'll kill me. They'll try." Harlan's voice was calm but certain. "And they'll fail, because I'm not going to let them anywhere near you." Sofia looked at him, really looked, and something in her expression shifted. Not quite trust, but the beginning of it. "What do you need to know?" For the next hours, Sofia talked. She told them about the recruitment process, how agents in the Philippines promised legitimate jobs and pathways to citizenship, then confiscated passports and delivered workers to wealthy families who treated them as property. She told them about the Hale estate, the locked doors, the surveillance cameras, the punishment room in the basement where Barrett administered corrections for disobedience. She told them about the other women. Lila, who'd been there years and no longer spoke. Marissa, who cried herself to sleep every night. Others who'd come and gone, sent away when they became inconvenient. She told them about Donovan Hale's inspections, Late-night visits that Sofia couldn't bring herself to describe in detail. By the time she finished, Kendra was crying quietly. Klein's fists were clenched so tight his knuckles had gone white. Nadia's pen had stopped moving entirely, her notebook forgotten. "Jesus Christ," Klein muttered. "This is happening minutes from the capital." "This is happening everywhere," Nadia said grimly. "Domestic servitude, labor trafficking, sexual exploitation. It's the fastest growing criminal enterprise in the world, and it thrives because people with power protect it." Harlan stood. "Then we take away their power." "How?" "We get inside that house. We document everything. We get Lila and Marisa out along with any evidence we can find. Then we hand it to federal authorities so overwhelming that even Hale's connections can't make it disappear." Klein raised an eyebrow. "You're talking about breaking into a private residence, potentially assaulting security personnel, and extracting multiple individuals. That's not an investigation, Voss. That's a raid. I've done raids before against foreign combatants in war zones. This is Virginia. The enemy is different. The mission isn't." Harlan turned to Nadia. "Can you get the FBI involved before we move?" Nadia shook her head. "Not without evidence. Right now, all we have is Sofia's testimony. That's enough to open an investigation, but not enough for a warrant. The Hales lawyers would bury us in motions before we got anywhere near that house. So, we need evidence first. We need evidence first." Harlan looked at Klein. Then, "We get it." Klein held his gaze for a long moment. "Hell, Voss. I was getting bored with retirement anyway. What's the plan?" Harlan walked to the table and spread out a hand-drawn map of the Hale estate based on Sofia's descriptions. 2 entry points. Main gate is heavily monitored, but there's a service entrance on the east side that's only checked every hours. We go in between patrols. Security, Barrett plus 2 other guards, all ex-military, according to Sofia. They carry sidearms and tasers, cameras everywhere. But Klein's equipment includes signal jammers. We knock out their surveillance for a minute window long enough to get in, extract Lila and Marisa, and get out. And the Hales themselves. If they're there, we document everything. If they resist, Harlan's jaw tightened. We handle it. "What about me?" Sofia asked. Everyone turned to look at her. "You've done enough," Harlan said. "You're staying here where it's safe." "No." Sofia's voice was stronger than it had been. "Those women are my friends. They're trapped because of me, because I got away and they didn't. I'm going." "Sofia, I know the house. I know the routines. I know where they hide things." She met Harlan's gaze without flinching. "You need me." Kendra stepped forward. "She's right, Harlan, and she has the right to choose." Harlan looked between them, his pregnant wife, the terrified but determined maid, the 2 veterans, and the journalist who'd committed to this mission without hesitation. "All right," he said finally. "But you stay behind me. Always." "I will." "Then we move tomorrow at time. Everyone gets some sleep. It's going to be a long night." But sleep, Harlan knew, would be impossible. Not when 2 women were trapped in a mansion with people who considered them disposable. Not when the clock was ticking toward clean house. Not when everything he cared about hung in the balance. He sat on the porch as the others settled in for the night. Rex pressed against his leg, watching the darkness beyond the tree line. Somewhere out there, the Hales were making their own plans. Tomorrow, those plans would collide, and only one side would walk away. At time, headlights appeared on the road. Harlan was on his feet instantly, hand on his weapon, but the vehicle didn't turn into his driveway. It slowed, stopped about a yard away, sat idling for a long moment. Then the lights went off. The engine stopped. Silence. Harlan moved silently to the edge of his property, using the trees for cover. Rex followed, ears flat, hackles raised. A car door opened. A figure emerged, male, large, moving with purpose. The figure walked to Harlan's mailbox and deposited something inside. Then, without hurrying, returned to the car. The engine started. The headlights came back on. The vehicle drove away. Harlan waited a full minute before approaching the mailbox. Inside, he found a manila envelope. He opened it. Photographs. Kendra at the grocery store yesterday. Kendra at her prenatal appointment last week. Kendra through the window of their bedroom. And underneath the photographs, a single typed note. We can reach anyone anywhere. This is your final warning. Harlan stared at the photos for a long time. Then very carefully, he folded them and put them in his pocket. When he walked back to the house, Kendra was waiting on the porch. What was it? Harlan considered lying, considered protecting her from the truth. But Kendra Voss had never asked for protection. She'd asked for honesty. They're watching us. He said, they want us scared. Are you? No. Harlan climbed the steps and took her face in his hands, because fear only works when you have something to lose. And I'm not going to lose anything. Kendra's eyes glistened. And if you don't come back, then you raise our son to be better than me. Braver, kinder. Harlan pressed his forehead to hers. But I am coming back. I promise. You can't promise that. I just did. They held each other in silence while the others pretended not to watch. Finally, Kendra pulled back. Go, she said. Do what you have to do and come home. The fundraiser was held at Thorne's estate the following evening. Harlan arrived in a rented suit, invitation forged by Nadia's contacts, nerves steady despite the danger. The compound was exactly as Klein had described, sprawling, luxurious, crawling with security disguised as catering staff. At the entrance, a guard checked his name against a list. Harlan Voss, Navy SEAL. That's right. The guard's eyes lingered on his face a moment too long. Recognition? Suspicion? Harlan couldn't tell. Enjoy your evening, Mr. Voss. He was in. The party was everything Harlan expected. Wealthy people drinking expensive champagne, congratulating themselves on their generosity while ignoring where their host's money actually came from. He moved through the crowd, shaking hands, accepting thanks for his service, playing the role of humble hero, all while counting guards, noting exits, tracking Thorne's movements. The man himself was hard to miss. Raphael Thorne stood near the center of the room, holding court like a king among peasants. He was shorter than Harlan expected, maybe tall, with silver-streaked black hair and the kind of smile that never reached his eyes. When Thorne saw Harlan, something flickered across his face. Then the smile widened. Mr. Voss, Thorne approached, with hand extended. I have heard so much about you. Harlan shook it, resisting the urge to break every finger. Have you? The Navy SEAL who saved those women from the Hales. Very heroic. Thorne's grip was firm, his gaze penetrating. Vivian and Donovan were associates of mine, actually. Business partners, you might say. I'm sorry to hear that. Are you? Thorne chuckled. I doubt it. You seem like a man who does exactly what he intends to do. I try. So do I. Thorne leaned closer, dropping his voice. Which is why I'm going to give you some advice. Soldier to soldier. Some battles aren't worth fighting. Some enemies are too big to defeat. The wise man knows when to walk away. And the fool dies. Thorne's smile never wavered. Think about it. He walked away, leaving Harlan standing alone with his heart pounding and his fists clenched. His earpiece crackled. Klein's voice. I'm at the office. Security is lighter than expected. Either he's confident or this is a trap. Assume trap. Proceed anyway. Roger that. Starting data extraction now. Harlan moved toward the bar, positioning himself where he could see both the main room and the side exit. If Klein needed a distraction, he'd be ready. Minutes passed. The party continued around him, oblivious. Then his earpiece crackled again. Voss, what's happening? I heard shots. Cover blown. Thorne knows everything. He's sending men after Kendra. I'll call Nadia. Call everyone. FBI, police, National Guard, I don't care. Just get someone to my house now. Harlan burst through the south gate and found Klein waiting in a black sedan, engine running. He dove into the passenger seat. Go. Klein floored it. Behind them, alarms wailed and guards poured from the compound, but they were already gone, tearing down the highway toward home, towards Kendra, toward whatever was waiting. Harlan pulled out his phone and dialed his wife. 1 ring, 2, 3. Harlan. Kendra's voice was breathless, scared. Something's happening. There were cars outside. Men with the line went dead. Kendra, nothing. Harlan stared at the phone, his whole world narrowing to a single point of terror. They had her. Ava Thorne had his wife, and Harlan was hours away. The phone was dead in Harlan's hand. Kendra's voice, terrified, cut off mid-sentence, echoed in his skull like a gunshot that wouldn't stop reverberating. How far? His voice was steady. His hands were not. Kline checked the GPS. Minutes at current speed. Make it! Kline pushed the accelerator to the floor. Harlan tried calling again. Nothing. He tried Nadia. Straight to voicemail. He tried Sofia, Lila, Marisa. All the same. Dead air. Empty silence. They'd cut the lines. All of them. We need backup, Kline said. FBI, local SWAT, anyone who can get there faster than us. Call them. Call everyone. While Kline worked the phone, Harlan stared at the highway stretching ahead, his mind calculating scenarios. How many men would Thorne send? 6, 8, more? What were their orders? Capture or kill? If it was capture, Kendra had time. If it was kill, he couldn't finish the thought. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered instantly. Mr. Voss. Ava Thorne's voice was calm, almost pleasant. I see you've escaped my hospitality. Impressive, but ultimately pointless. Where is she? Your wife is safe for now. She's quite beautiful, actually. I can see why you're so attached. Harlan's grip tightened until the phone creaked. If you hurt her, I have no intention of hurting her. Not if you cooperate. Thorne paused. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to turn around and drive to the Norfolk warehouse. You're going to destroy all evidence of tomorrow's shipment. And then you're going to surrender yourself to my men, and Kendra will be released unharmed along with the other women in your house. You have my word. Your word means nothing, perhaps, but it's all you have. Thorne's voice hardened. You have hours, Mr. Voss. After that, I start sending pieces of your wife to news stations, beginning with her fingers. The line went dead. Harlan sat motionless, the phone pressed to his ear, hearing nothing but the roar of blood in his skull. What did he say? Kline asked. He wants me to destroy the evidence and surrender in exchange for Kendra. You can't trust him, I know. So, what do we do? Harlan closed his eyes. For a moment, he was back in Afghanistan, pinned behind a rock wall with bullets flying overhead, his squad scattered, his options narrowing by the second. He'd survived that day by doing the unexpected, by moving when every instinct said stay, by attacking when logic demanded retreat. He opened his eyes. We split up. What? You go to Norfolk, secure the warehouse, save those women, and you? I'm going to get my wife back. Kline glanced at him. Alone against Thorne's entire operation. They're expecting me to follow instructions to be predictable. Harlan checked the weapon he'd taken from Thorne's guards. They don't know me very well. Harlan, this isn't a discussion. Harlan's voice left no room for argument. Nadia has the FBI contacts. When you secure the warehouse, you call them. You bring the whole weight of federal law enforcement down on Thorne's network. That's the mission. And your mission? My mission is the same as it's always been. Harlan met Kline's eyes. Protect my family. They drove in silence for another M before reaching the junction where their paths would diverge. Kline pulled to the shoulder. I've been in combat with a lot of men, he said quietly. Served with some of the best warriors on the planet. But I've never met anyone like you, Voss. Is that a compliment? It's a fact. Kline gripped his shoulder. Go get your wife. I'll handle Norfolk. Thank you, Brody, for everything. Save it for after. Kline's jaw tightened. After we're getting a beer, and you're telling me how the hell you pulled this off. Harlan took Klein's spare vehicle, a nondescript sedan that wouldn't draw attention. He watched the black Suburban disappear toward Norfolk, carrying with it the hopes of women he'd never met. Then he turned toward home, toward Kendra, toward whatever was waiting. He drove with calculated aggression, pushing the speed limit but not breaking it. Getting pulled over now would be a death sentence for Kendra, for everyone. His mind worked the problem from every angle. Thorne had sent men to his house. How many? Unknown. They had Kendra, Sofia, Lila, Marisa, 4 hostages. That meant they needed enough men to control them all, plus perimeter security. 8 men minimum, probably 10. And Rex. What had happened to Rex? The thought struck him like ice water. His dog, his partner, his protector had been in that house. If they'd heard him, Harlan forced the thought away. He couldn't afford distraction. Not now. Minutes later, he was me from home. He abandoned the car and moved on foot, using the terrain for cover. His NWU uniform had been replaced with dark civilian clothes, but his training remained. He was a shadow, a ghost, a predator approaching its prey. Through the trees, he saw his house. 3 vehicles in the driveway, 2 men on the porch, 2 more walking the perimeter, at least 4 inside, 8 confirmed, maybe more. And somewhere in there, Kendra. Harlan circled the property, mapping positions, counting weapons, identifying vulnerabilities. The men were professional, but not exceptional military contractors. Probably hired muscle without the discipline of true operators. He found what he was looking for near the back of the house. A small gap in their coverage. A second window between perimeter rotations, seconds to cross feet of open ground. He waited. The guard on the left turned. The guard on the right checked his phone. Harlan moved. He covered the distance in dead silence, sliding through the basement window he'd intentionally left unlocked for exactly this kind of situation. Kendra had always complained about it. A security vulnerability, she called it. Tonight, it would save her life. The basement was dark and familiar. He navigated by memory, moving toward the stairs that led to the kitchen. Voices above. Laughter. Someone making a crude joke about the pregnant woman upstairs. Harlan's jaw tightened until it ached. He reached the top of the stairs and listened. Boss says we wait until Voss shows up. Someone was saying, then we take them both. What if he doesn't come? Then we start cutting. Thorne was clear. The wife loses fingers at the mark. Seems like a waste. She's pretty. She's bait. Don't get attached. Harlan had heard enough. He eased the door open millimeters at a time until he could see into the kitchen. 2 men backs to him, weapons holstered sloppy. He moved like water, fluid, silent, inevitable. The first man never saw him coming. Harlan's arm wrapped around his throat, cutting off blood to the brain. The man struggled for seconds, then went limp. The second man turned, eyes going wide. Harlan was already there. A palm strike to the nose, a knee to the groin, an elbow to the temple. The man dropped. 2 down, at least 6 to go. Harlan took their weapons, 2 pistols, a knife, extra magazines. He moved deeper into the house. The living room was empty. The dining room was empty. Where were the hostages? A sound from upstairs. A woman crying. Kendra. Harlan climbed the stairs, testing each step for creaks, moving with the patience that had kept him alive through 100 combat situations. At the top, a hallway, 2 doors, both closed. Behind the first, he heard male voices. Behind the second, crying. He tried the second door. Locked. The voices behind the first door suddenly stopped. Did you hear something? Probably nothing. Go check. The door opened. The man who stepped out had exactly 1 second to register Harlan's presence before a pistol butt cracked against his skull. He crumpled. Harlan stepped over him and into the room. 3 men, all reaching for weapons. He fired twice before they could react. 2 dropped. The third managed to get his gun clear and squeeze off a shot that went wide, punching through the wall. Harlan's third bullet caught him center mass. The man collapsed. Silence. Then, from behind the locked door, "Harlan! Harlan!" Kendra's voice alive, desperate. "I'm here, baby. Hold on." He kicked the locked door open. Kendra was on the bed, hands bound, tears streaming down her face. Sofia, Lila, and Marissa were with her, similarly restrained, and in the corner, lying motionless on the floor. Rex. Harlan's heart stopped. "They shot him," Kendra sobbed. "He tried to protect us and they shot him." "Harlan, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." Harlan dropped to his knees beside his dog. Blood matted Rex's fur. His breathing was shallow, labored, but he was breathing. "Hey, boy." Harlan's voice cracked. "Hey, stay with me." Rex's eyes opened. His tail moved weakly. "That's it. Good boy. You did good." From outside, shouts. The remaining guards had heard the shots. "Harlan, there are more coming," Kendra warned. He didn't hesitate. He cut her bonds first, then the others. "Can you move?" "Yes." "Take the others to the basement. There's a window on the east side. Get out. Get to the woods. Don't stop until you reach the Whitakers' farm." "What about you? I'm right behind you." He kissed her. Quick. Fierce. "I love you. Now go." Kendra didn't argue. She gathered the other women and ran. Harlan turned back to Rex. "I'm not leaving you, boy." He lifted the German shepherd in his arms, pounds of muscle and fur and loyalty, and moved toward the stairs, heavy footsteps below. The guards had entered the house. Harlan adjusted his grip, freeing one hand for his weapon. Two men appeared at the bottom of the stairs. Harlan shot the first one before he could raise his gun. The second dove for cover. "Come on out, Voss." The man's voice was shaky. "You're surrounded. There's no way out of this." Harlan kept moving down the stairs. "I'm going to walk out of here," he said calmly. "And you're going to let me, because if you don't, every one of you dies tonight. You're one man. I'm a Navy SEAL. Do you know how many men I've killed?" Harlan reached the bottom of the stairs. "More than there are of you. A lot more." Silence. Then slowly, the remaining guards emerged from cover. 3 of them, hands raised. "Drop your weapons." They did. On the ground, face down, they complied. Harlan stepped over them and walked out the front door. Kendra was waiting at the tree line. The other women clustered behind her. When she saw him carrying Rex, she started crying again. "He's alive," Harlan said. "We need a vet. There's an emergency animal hospital minutes from here." "Then that's where we're going." They piled into one of the guards' vehicles and drove. Harlan kept one hand on the wheel and one hand on Rex's chest, feeling the dog's heartbeat, willing it to keep going. "You're going to be okay," he murmured. "You hear me? You're going to be fine," Rex whimpered softly. "That's right. Stay with me." The animal hospital was bright, clean, and staffed by people who didn't ask questions when a blood-covered Navy SEAL carried in a wounded German shepherd at time in the morning. They took Rex into surgery immediately. Harlan stood in the waiting room covered in blood. Rex's blood. Enemy blood. He couldn't tell anymore and watched the doors close behind his dog. Kendra took his hand. "He's going to make it," she said. "He's a fighter just like you." Harlan couldn't respond. His throat was too tight. An hour later, his phone rang. "Klein, tell me good news," Harlan said. "The best." Klein's voice was triumphant. "We got them, Voss. All women alive and safe. FBI is on scene. The warehouse is locked down. Thorne's operation is finished. And Thorne himself. That's the best part." Klein laughed. Actually laughed. He tried to run. Private jet emergency departure. Except someone tipped off the FAA. His plane was intercepted minutes after takeoff. He's in federal custody. Harlan closed his eyes. It was over. "Voss, you still there?" "Yeah, I'm here." Nadia's story hits the news at time. Every major network. This is going to be the biggest trafficking bust in a decade, and your name is going to be all over it. I don't care about credit. I know you don't. That's why you deserve it. Klein's voice softened. Go be with your family, Harlan. You've earned it. The call ended. Kendra was watching him. It's done. It's done. She collapsed into his arms, sobbing with relief, and Harlan held her tight, feeling something inside him finally begin to unclench. Hours later, the vet emerged from surgery. He's stable, she said. The bullet missed the major organs. He's going to need time to recover, but he's going to be fine. Harlan Voss, the man who had faced death countless times without flinching, felt tears running down his face. Can I see him? Of course. Rex was awake when Harlan entered the recovery room, his tail wagging weakly at the sight of his master. Hey, boy. Harlan knelt beside him, stroking his fur. You scared me. Rex licked his hand. Don't do that again. Okay. Another lick. Agreement, as clear as words. Harlan stayed with him until dawn broke through the windows, painting the room in shades of gold. Weeks later, everything had changed. Ava Thorne was indicted on federal counts. His network was dismantled, his assets seized, his name synonymous with evil. The trial would take months, but the outcome was never in doubt. Donovan and Vivian Hale pleaded guilty in exchange for reduced sentences. They would spend the rest of their lives in prison. Sofia's documentation was expedited. She and her daughter moved into a small apartment near the Voss house, close enough for regular visits. Lila and Marissa returned to their families in the Philippines, their passage paid for by a fund that Nadia Reid established with proceeds from her book deal. The women from the Norfolk warehouse were reunited with their loved ones in a ceremony that made international news, and on a warm spring morning, Kendra Voss went into labor. Harlan was by her side through every contraction, every push, every moment of pain and triumph. When the doctor placed their son in his arms, Harlan looked down at the tiny face and felt something crack open in his chest. Hey there, he whispered. I'm your dad. The baby yawned. I know it's overwhelming, but don't worry. I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you're safe, making sure you never have to fight the battles I've fought. Kendra, exhausted but radiant, reached for his hand. What should we name him? Harlan had thought about this for months. He'd considered family names, biblical names, names of fallen brothers who deserved to be remembered. But in the end, there was only one choice. Corbin, he said, after the patron saint of laborers, the one who believed that faith without works is dead. Kendra smiled through her tears. Corbin Voss, I love it. Corbin Harlan Voss, Harlan corrected. So he always remembers where he came from. That evening, they brought Corbin home. The house had been repaired, the bullet holes patched, the broken windows replaced, the damage erased, as if it had never happened. But Harlan could still feel the echoes of violence in every room that would fade. He knew time would soften the memories, smooth the sharp edges until only the important parts remained. Sofia was waiting on the porch with her daughter. Lila and Marissa had sent flowers from Manila. Nadia Reid had already published the first chapter of her book, dedicating it to the Navy SEAL, who reminded me that heroes still exist. And in the living room, 2 puppies tumbled over each other, competing for attention. Harlan had named them finally. The white-blazed one was Phantom because he'd nearly disappeared into death, but refused to stay gone. The darker one was Eclipse because he followed Harlan everywhere, silent and watchful, loyal beyond measure. Rex lay on his bed in the corner, still recovering but growing stronger every day. He lifted his head when Harlan entered, tail thumping against the cushion. Look who's home, Harlan said, kneeling to show him the baby. Rex sniffed Corbin gently, then licked his tiny hand. That's right. You're brothers now. You protect each other. Kendra settled onto the couch, Corbin cradled against her chest. It's quiet, she said. I forgot what sounds like. Get used to it. Harlan sat beside her, his arm around her shoulders. We're done with adventures for a while. Promise? He looked at his wife, his son, his dogs, the family he'd nearly lost, the family he'd fought to save. Promise. Outside, the sun was setting over the river, where this story had begun. The same water that had nearly claimed 2 innocent lives now glowed gold and peaceful, carrying its secrets to the sea. Harlan thought about the woman on the bridge, Vivian Hale with her cruelty and contempt. He thought about Ava Thorne with his money and power. He thought about all the people who believed that might made right, that wealth bought impunity, that human beings were commodities to be bought and sold. They were wrong. They were always wrong. Because no matter how dark the world became, there would always be people willing to stand against the darkness. People who jumped into rivers without hesitation. People who fought for strangers. People who refused to look away. Harlan had spent years fighting evil in distant lands, but the most important battle of his life had been right here in his own backyard. And he had won. Not alone. Never alone. He'd won because of Kendra's courage, Sofia's testimony, Klein's loyalty, Nadia's determination. He'd won because good people stood together when it mattered most. That was the lesson he would teach his son. That was the legacy he would leave behind. Kendra stirred beside him, already half asleep. Harlan. Yeah, baby. Thank you for what? For being you. She smiled without opening her eyes. For being exactly who you are. Harlan kissed her forehead. Thank you for letting me. He sat in the growing darkness, holding this family close, watching the last light fade from the sky. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new struggles, new reasons to fight. But tonight, there was peace. Tonight, there was love. Tonight, there was hope. And for Harlan Voss, the Navy SEAL who had jumped into a river to save 2 drowning puppies and ended up bringing down an empire of evil, that was more than enough. Sometimes God places warriors where they're needed most. Sometimes that battlefield is an ocean away in places without names. And sometimes it's your own front porch protecting the people you love from monsters who wear expensive suits. The mission never really ends. The fight never truly stops. But every victory matters. Every life saved as a light in the darkness. Every act of courage inspires another. Harlan Voss had taught his enemies a lesson they would never forget. Harm the innocent and someone will rise to stop you. Threaten the helpless and warriors will appear. Evil may be powerful, but it is never invincible, because as long as good people refuse to surrender, hope will always survive, and hope in the end is stronger than any weapon ever.